Myself, Shiva Kumar. I am working as Head Extension Division in Institute of Food Science and Technology, Bangalore. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you for this webinar. Distinguished panelists, speakers of today's webinar, esteemed participants of this webinar who joined us virtually from different parts of the country, my colleague from IWST. On behalf of Institute of Food Science and Technology, I welcome all of you for this webinar on need for an act to revive agro wood-based sector in India. IWST being a premier research institute having more than 8 decades experience of research in wood science and technology, we work hard to provide technical inputs to wood-based industries, government, and tree growers across the country. In this endeavor, IWST continuously interact and consult various stakeholders from wood-based industries and tree growers to understand their issues and concerns related to wood sector in India. Considering the feedback received from various stakeholders, IWST has drafted a piece of legislation to promote tree outside forest and to boost wood-based industry in the country. So we are extremely proud and glad to host this webinar to discuss this draft piece of legislation and to hear the views from the panel of experts representing policy advisors, legal experts, industry and academia working in the area of forest and environmental sector. For this webinar, we are having 6 distinguished panelists and speakers. I am proud and privileged to introduce each of them and welcome them formally before starting this webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelist, Shri Bivas Ranjan sir. He belongs to 1989 batch of Indian Forest Service allotted to Uttar Pradesh cadre. Presently, sir is serving as ADG Wildlife in the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. He is also a chairman of second joint working group for promotion and expansion of tree outside forest constituted by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Previously, sir served in various capacities in Government of India as well as State Government of Uttar Pradesh. We are extremely happy to have here with us, sir, today. I extend warm welcome to you on behalf of Institute of Food Science and Technology, sir. I am privileged to introduce next panelist, Shri Ritwik Dhattaji. He is a very popular and leading environmental lawyer. He is well known among forest officers and environmentalists across the country. He is a founding member and managing trustee of LIFE, that is a legal initiative for forest and environment. It is a public interest environmental group consisting of lawyers. He served as secretary of the National Green Tribunal Bar Association. He is an Ashoka Fellow and recipient of many honors and awards. To name a few, he is a recipient of College's Roll of Honor in 2005, the Century ABN Award in 2007, NDTV Green Hero Award 2010, and so on. He has authored more than 15 books on environmental law, including Supreme Court on forest conservation and commentary on National Green Tribunal Act 2010. He is a member of first joint working group for the promotion and expansion of forest constituted by the MOF and CC. I extend warm welcome to Shri Ritwik Dhattaji to join this webinar. I am privileged to introduce another panelist, Shri Sajan Bajankaji. He is one of the leading industrialists in the country. Presently, he is serving as chairman, Century Plyboard India Private Limited and Star Cement Limited. He is also president for Federation of Indian Plywood and Panel Industry. He also serves as a chairman of Research Advisory Committee of Indian Plywood Industries Research and Training Institute, Bangalore. He is also president of All India Veneer Manufacturers Association. He is a founder of Century Plywood Boards India Private Limited, which is the biggest and #1 brand in India. He is having more than 35 years of experience, not only in the field of plywood, but also in cement industry, ferrosilicon, construction, and granite industry. He supports us, especially IWST, for the various initiatives which are taken by our institute. I once again welcome you for this webinar. Shortly, one more panelist will be joining us, Shri Aman Jaji. He is a leading environmental lawyer practicing in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. He is also a member of first joint working group for the promotion and expansion of tree outside forest that was constituted recently by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I am proud to introduce our director, Dr. MP Singh Ji. He is a member of Indian Forest Service, belongs to 1989 batch of Jharkhand cadre. He served in various capacities, both in Government of India and Government of Jharkhand. He published more than 25 articles in reputed national and international journal. He played instrumental role in revising National Working Plan Code 2014. Finally, the last speaker of the today's webinar is Dr. Prabuddha. He is my colleague from IWST. He belongs to 2008 batch of Indian Forest Service, belongs to Gujarat cadre. Before joining IWST, he worked in State Forest Department, Gujarat. He's having PhD in genetics and plant breeding. He also published several papers in national and international journals. Once again, I welcome all the participants and speakers for this webinar. With this brief background, now I would hand over mic to our director, Dr. MP Singh Ji, to conduct this webinar as a moderator. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon to all the respected panelists. Now, I request Shri Vivas Ranjan, ADG Wildlife, to make the opening remarks for this webinar. Over to Vivas Ranjan. Yeah. Voice नहीं आ रही.
Thank you, Henry. Thanks a lot. Good evening to all of you. Today's topic is very relevant, and right now we are discussing in the second joint working group meeting, which is meant for promotion and expansion of tree outside forest. How the tree standing outside forest can area be expanded. I would like to flag 4 or 5 issues before all of you to have a good and important deliberations. How this commercially important agroforestry species, which is basically a forestry species, can be promoted outside the forest areas. Because it has some export potentials, commercial potentials, and it is illegally extracted from the forest of the country. Recently on World Forestry Day, we have launched 4 booklets on 4 species: red sandalwood, rosewood, and agarwood, to propagate in the agri zone. So how this important forestry species can be extended and propagated outside the forest areas. Techniques, procedures, genotype qualities, the quality planting materials, the markets, all are with us, but needs trust to be expanded further. Number 2, in addition to 4 species, can we promote many more such species which has a domestic market, which can replace or reduce the import part in our country? Thirdly, how we can get the quality planting material of all these saplings. There is a bottleneck here. We have the nurseries, but we do not have accredited nurseries. We have nurseries, but we do not have a certified saplings. We have a nursery, but we do not have a certified forest products or timber, which have some export potentials. So quality planting material availability is the most trusted area which needs the detailed deliberations from the panelists and their stakeholders. Fourth is, supposing if we grow the saplings in the private area, can these saplings be eco-labeled? Can these saplings be certified? So that the farmers can also double their income by their sale of this agroforestry. Fourth, how can we enhance the infrastructure for the agroforestry products marketing? There is no systematic market available in our country. We have a mandis, we have a mandi samitis, we have an unstructured market for the agroforestry products. कहीं बांस की मंडी है, कहीं छोटी लकड़ी की मंडी है, और जो भी है उसका हमारे पास कोई लिस्टिंग नहीं, डिटेलिंग्स नहीं। क्या हम अपने इस तरह के स्टोर्स को, इस तरह के डिपोट्स को, इस तरह के हाट को, इस तरह के मंडी को क्लब कर सकते हैं और इसको स्ट्रेंथन कर सकते हैं? इसको किसी कॉमन फैसिलिटेशन सेंटर से जोड़ सकते हैं? लगता है आज के समय की मांग है, एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री प्रोडक्ट्स का मार्केट तब होगा जब इसका डिमांड इंडस्ट्रीज करे, चाहे वो स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज हो, मीडियम स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज हो, लार्ज स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज। क्या उनके रॉ मटेरियल का डिमांड हम फुलफिल करते हैं? Third is, next is how this pressure on the forest can be reduced. These are interrelated issues which needs detailed deliberations. And the topic of the today's webinar, need an act to revive agro-wood based sector. I think need an act instead of act, we can say is SOPs. There should be SOPs for this. How these can be addressed, how the agroforestry area can be broadened, how the agroforestry area can be doubled, keeping in view to increase the farmers' income, how the Atmanirbhar Bharat can be the achievable goal through agroforestry. So these are the focal points, and I request MP, Director of the Institute, to give me a details on this, because very soon, with my all the expert panelists sitting here, I think I know Ritwik might be knowing me also. We had met many times. I had heard the person from the industry, the last meeting. We are having the meeting of the second joint working group in my chamber itself. Now it is going on. So, collating and compiling all the facts and figures, we can reach on a consensus that the area can be doubled. If area cannot be doubled, the productions can be doubled. If productions can be doubled, how the income can be doubled. So these are all are the interconnected parts. So my all the best wishes to the organizations, IWST, and IWST in near future will be getting much more responsibilities on the in the terms of certifications, accreditations, and many more for the coming future for agroforestry promotions. So all the best from my sides, and I request all the panelists to come with a wonderful conclusion so that it can be doable and implementable. Thank you. Thanks, MP.
Fact, very important issues, and we have tried to cover those issues under the facilitation provisions of the Act, and we will have the detailed discussion why we need Act, not only the SOP. SOP and the guidelines have been in India for a long time, but there has been issues which I think Shri Sajan Bajankaji will flag those issues, why they need some respite, that there is some infirmity in the country, and we have the system of having legal wood in India. All the farm wood which are being produced by the farmers in the agriculture field, they have no category. Either they have to come and get certified under the forest management certification or the TOF certifications, that also is not recognized worldwide as such. So we need to, but every country they want, or every system, even the ISO certification standard, international standard for the chain of custody for wood and wood products, they also expect that all the country will have a legal system of having the timber produced in the country. So before going into the detailed presentation, I would request Shri Bajanka sir to give his thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. And I thank MOEF, Vivas Ranjan sir, Dr. Singh, IWST for taking various initiatives. We are really delighted that all of a sudden the entire ministry, the people related with the forest at the highest places are also become very active. So I think the time of uh, this movement, the revolution which should have taken place in our country long back has already come. And in the words of Victor Hugo, an idea whose time has come, no power in world can stop it. So I am very sure very soon we shall have a very effective act also, and that would be put in the reality. I fully agree with Vivas Ranjan sir that demand would come from industry. I fully endorse his views, and he again the statement that all the forest departments they should facilitate, they should double the output from the forestry by the area wise. If not area, then with the enhanced productivity, and again the need for, as he stated, for certifications and for other related things is the need of the hour. So I will take it in general perspective, and my views would be morely confined with the agro wood-based industry, and more particularly agro-based industries, because agar wood and other things are not my subject, and by and large, they are not part of the general industrialization based on the agroforestry. So what I know and learn and what we are practicing, there are few species particularly popular and eucalyptus in North India, and silver oak, Milia duvia, even eucalyptus, rubber wood. These are the species in South India, and simul, alanthes, and few species are there in Eastern India. And lately, it is heartening to note that the governments in Eastern India, they are also coming forward. They are also liberalizing the cutting of the tree, and more particularly grown on the agroforestry basis. Recently, Assam, they have notified there would be no restriction on cutting the tree, putting up any industry based on agroforestry. So really, I'm delighted to see all the developments. So the policies, any act we are endeavoring to bring should be of a facilitating nature, not the restrictive nature or not the controlling nature. That we have done enough in the past. And I remember until 2002, uh, there was no need for any licensing, anything for the veneer unit, for the plywood unit, and industry was growing happily, and the plantation was increasing, and virtually there was no effort from government or from any other body in bringing the plantation or growing the plantation. It has come on the initiative of some private groups, and then it has grown and survived on the basis of the plywood industry and the sawmill and the furniture industry. So, particularly, I have seen the eucalyptus and the popular prices going up in North India from 1 rupee a kg to up to 12 rupees a kg. And then after 2002, when a lot of restrictions were imposed in establishing new units, and after that, the industry gradually started declining, or if not declining, then not growing, whereas plantation was growing happily. And there was a time there was no taker for plantation wood, and the prices started falling down and came down as low as 4 rupees 50 paisa a kg for poplar wood. So that this was the period when the farmers, they have destroyed the standing crops of the poplar because they were not seeing any future. So here now one thing I would like to make very clear, that present agroforestry in India is purely on farmers' wish, their willingness to plant. There is no incentive from government, and the land is farmers. It is replacement of the cash crop into agroforestry. So we have to bring a policy where it should be conducive to more and more growth. And I fully agree with Vivas Ranjan sir that whatever yield would come from agroforestry, that has to be has to have a ready demand, and this ready demand can come from the industry only, because agroforestry produce cannot be used for any other purpose. So it could be veneer mill, it could be a sawmill, it could be MDF plant, it could be particle board plant, and ultimately all these panels manufactured in whatever nature and form would be ultimately used for the furniture. So this is a thing, and uh, so the motivation to farmers, it is very important. So whatever we do now, we draft the act, we should keep in our mind that it should be motivating to encourage the farmers, and it it should pave the way for smooth and hassle-free establishment of industries. Uh, all the wooden panel producing all over the world are basically used in the industry only. And uh, lately, uh, all the countries, they are gradually moving, except the African region, except few parts of America, the most of other parts in the world, particularly Indo-Chinese region, everything is moving towards plantation wood only. And now industry there are surviving on the agroforestry, not on the natural forest. And China is a classical example. In 90s, I remember when housing revolution started in China, timber from all over the world, plywood, other panel products were moving towards China. And today, in China, own production was very limited. So that time China took the initiative. They uh, they promoted the plantation massively on the government land, on the private land, in the partnership mode, private public partnership mode. So that time, and now they are manufacturing minimum 10 times in comparison to 90s, and 100%, or I would say most of it, they are consuming themselves, and they are converting into the finished product, and they are selling finished product. China is the largest furniture exporter in the world. So whatever export takes place in the world, 50% of that comes from China. So from deficit to surplus, and then this is specialty of industry. Suppose in India also there could be a situation when like uh, when there will be more plantation, there will be more supply. So industry, if it is not restricted, it can grow in tandem with the supply. It will increase capacity, it will multiply its capacity, and it will feed domestic market. And if the total quantum of production is more than domestic requirement, so it can very easily export, because all the wood produce, all the wooden panel are global commodity. So like China, it is consuming themselves. China is exporting equally. Similarly, we can do it. So that is a vast area. So need is there that we should facilitate agroforestry, and any act which we bring, we should keep in mind it should not at all be restrictive. It should facilitate only, make ease of doing business. So that is uh, so I don't say that there cannot be any role of MOEF. It could be there very much. MOEF through its various wings like EPRT, like IWST, like FRI, can utilize those facilities in developing better species of wood which are suitable for the different parts of the country, like climate and soil conditions in North India, South India, Eastern India, and Western India are quite different. So we have to find proper species which can be profitably grown in the different parts of India. Then, like the productivity in China has increased minimum 3 times in last 30 years. So these have been developed by their forest institutes. And again, they can develop new techniques like EPRT, something. They can develop less costly machines, small peelings, which in 5 to 10 lakh rupees could be put in the small farms all over the country, where the farmer will cut their timber, peel it themselves, and sun dry it and supply it. Similarly, wooden planks could also be produced there with very, very small sawmills for a lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. So these things could be developed to improve the quality and other things. So, in my opinion, we should work, and this is the need of the hour, that without losing any further time, we come out with a very, very effective act to promote agroforestry and to promote agroforestry based industries. So the best thing we can do, like once Narasimha Rao, our ex-prime minister, he said that people give me a lot of credit for reforms, for the industrialization of India, for the progress, but I have done nothing. I have only unshackled the Indian industry. ये जितनी जंजीरों से जो उद्योग जगत बंधा हुआ था, मैंने वो जंजीरें हटाई हैं, और उसके बाद तो जो किया है वो इंडस ने किया है, एंटरप्रेन्योर ने किया है, इंडस्ट्री ने किया है. तो यहाँ हमको भी सारी जंजीरें हटा देनी है. एक्ट आप इस चीज को ध्यान में रखते हुए लाए कि ये जो एक्ट होगा, अब तक जितने भी एक्ट थे हम लोगों ने काफी उनमें बंधन लगाए थे, ऐसा होगा, इसका परमिशन होगा, ये यहाँ से देगा, वहाँ से देगा, अल्टीमेटली स्टेट लेवल कमेटी होगी, वहाँ जाएगा, वो उसमें दे विल tabulate and calculate what are the wood available from forest, what are the wood available from agroforestry. And I very sincerely say that none of the departments of government have any capacity or any means to exactly calculate and tabulate the what is available, what would be available. This is very, very relative. If demand is good, immediately you will see within a year the lot of land is being diverted from case crop to agroforestry. And again, like 2002, 3, 4, the situation is that the people will destroy the standing crops. So these now, like we deal with all other agricultural produce, case crops, similarly we have to do treat this agro wood also, and we should leave it to farmers, to industry. Let us free all of them, farmers to produce as much as they can produce, and industry to consume as much as they can consume. And in China also there was situation of mismatch of demand and supply, but now both supply and demand both have enlarged so much, and it has become such a big economy. Then this temporarily mismatch doesn't disturb the industry, because there are like आज गेहूं है, चावल है, और फ्लोर मिल है, सो मिल है, राइस मिल है, तो चारों भारत के हर कोने में है। तो हम लोग कभी ये नहीं सोचते हैं कि भी यहाँ चावल ज्यादा हो गया, मिलिंग कैपेसिटी कम है, या मिलिंग कैपेसिटी ज्यादा है, उसको रॉ मटेरियल नहीं मिल रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है। तो हमको इसको फ्री कर देना पड़ेगा जितना बनाए। और फार्मर की एक प्रॉब्लम है, उसका माल अगर बन गया, तैयार हो गया, एंड देयर इज नो डिमांड, तो उस केस में बेचारे के पास कोई साधन नहीं रहता है, उसको पहले तो कर्जा लेना पड़ता है। आज 5-5 साल के लिए ट्री लगा के भूल जाए, केस क्रॉप में तो अभी लगाया है, 4 महीने बाद फसल आ जाएगी, और ये प्लांटेशन करेगा, उसके 5 साल बाद फसल आएगी, 6 साल बाद आएगी, और उस समय काटना है, तो इतने दिन तक उसको सस्टेन भी करना है। तो हम लोगों को करना है तो ऐसे मैकेनिज्म तैयार करनी चाहिए जो एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री है, उसके लिए बैंक्स लोन दे, उसके लिए इंडस्ट्री के साथ ऐसा एक वो बना दें कि भी एक वैलिड ट्रिपल टाइट एग्रीमेंट हो सके, जिसमें बैंक भी पैसा दे दे, इंडस्ट्री उसको गारंटी कर दे, या जहां पॉसिबल है इंडस्ट्री भी दे दे। लेकिन छोटी इंडस्ट्री, स्मॉल इंडस्ट्री के लिए एडवांस पैसा देना लॉन्ग टर्म बेसिस वो जनरली पॉसिबल नहीं है। तो हम लोगों को वो एक माहौल तैयार करना चाहिए। और उसका जो माल जब तैयार हो जाए तो उसके मन में कोई मतलब सस्पेंशन नहीं होना चाहिए कि हमारा माल बिकेगा या नहीं बिकेगा, उसमें क्या रहेगा। उसको मालूम है डिमांड रहेगी, 5% 10% प्राइस ज्यादा कम हो सकती है, लेकिन उससे ज्यादा कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला है। वो बहुत वाइड स्प्रेड और बहुत ब्रॉडर मार्केट होना चाहिए। तो ये जो है आगे वाले, आज बिल्कुल सही टाइम पर हम लोग प्रयास कर रहे हैं। आज MOEF में तो मैंने देखा, मैंने PM सर को एक लेटर लिखा था कुछ प्रेजेंटेशन के साथ, तो उन्होंने बहुत उसको वाइडली सर्कुलेट करवाया है, सबसे राय मांगी है। अभी इतनी और इनिशिएटिव हो रही है। लास्ट एक सेमिनार हुई थी जिसमें नेशनल लेवल पर मैंने भी पार्टिसिपेट किया था, उस पे एग्रोफोरेस्ट्री के लिए भी था। तो ये सब सारी वेलकम चीजें थिंग्स हैं, और मुझे अभी कोई भी मेरे मन में संशय नहीं है कि आने वाले 10 साल जो हमारी एग्रोफोरेस्ट्री के होंगे, और फॉरेस्ट को बहुत बड़ी ग्रेड मिलने जा रही है। आज के दिन 16% नेचुरल फॉरेस्ट है, और 9% फॉरेस्ट जो हमारे हैं वो एग्रोफोरेस्ट्री बेस्ड फॉरेस्ट है, वो मैन मेड फॉरेस्ट है। उसमें फार्मर्स ने अपनी जमीन दी है, उस पर पेड़ लगाए हैं, और ये 9% जो है वो डबल तो हो ही सकता है। जैसे विवास रंजन सर ने कहा कि वी शुड डबल इट, अगर इसको हम लोग डबल कर देते हैं तो ये 9% और बढ़ जाएगा, तो 25 से 34 हो जाएगा। तो हमारा जो टारगेट है 33% का, वो तो अपने आप मीट हो जाएगा। तो दीज आर द थिंग्स एंड चैलेंजेस वी शुड ओवरकम, and we should make provisions in the new act that it should be facilitating ये agroforestry के जो भी प्रोड्यूस हैं those would be treated as par with the cash crop. Farmers would remain as farmer whether they produce cash crop or agroforestry. जो एग्रीकल्चर जगत को जो बेनिफिट्स हैं इनकम टैक्स के, इसके सब्सिडाइज यूरिया, सब्सिडाइज मैनर, सब्सिडाइज पावर, सब्सिडाइज वाटर, ये सब उनको मिलने चाहिए। और उसके अलावा चूंकि इसका लॉन्ग टेन्यूर है, सस्ते दाम में उसको लोन भी मिलनी चाहिए। और ये इसका एक उसमें ध्यान रखा जाए। और किसी भी तरह की किसी भी इंडस्ट्री के लिए आज तो हमको उनको बुला के लाना है। वी आर बेगिंग दैट इंडस्ट्री शुड कम इन द विलेजेज, इंडस्ट्री शुड कम टू कंज्यूम प्लांटेशन वुड, एंड वहाँ हम लोग उनको बुलाएं, उनको इनवाइट करें और साथ ही बताएं भाई आप आ जाओ तो आपकी ये रेस्ट्रिक्शन है, पहले तो आप कहाँ लगाओगे। और उसके बाद में अभी जैसे मैंने इस एक्ट में देखा, जो आपका ड्राफ्ट एक्ट है उसमें आपने कहा कि लाइसेंसिंग की जरूरत नहीं होनी चाहिए लेकिन रजिस्ट्रेशन की होनी चाहिए। तो यूपी में आज क्या हो रहा है, यूपी में जो एमओएफ की गाइडलाइंस आई थी 17 की, उसको उन्होंने नोटिफाई कर दिया। फिर कोई एक वेस्टेड ग्रुप है वहाँ इलाहाबाद हाईकोर्ट में चला गया, उसने उस पर स्टे दे दिया और उन्होंने कहा था कि हम ये गाइडलाइंस है और इसके हिसाब से एक रजिस्ट्रेशन खाली करना पड़ेगा विच वुड नॉट बी डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी, ये दैट इज फॉर्मेलिटी। एंड उसके अंदर उसकी हम फॉर्मेट दे देते हैं, वो फॉर्मेट आज तक नहीं दी उसको। आज एक्ट को मतलब उनका जो गाइडलाइंस को आए हुए 5 साल हो गए, वो जो उन्होंने नहीं दी, वेस्टेड ग्रुप चला गया इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट में, फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट गया सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसको वैकेट भी कर दिया, उसके बाद भी आज तक उन्होंने नोटिफाई नहीं किया। तो ये जो है हाथी गुजर जाएगा और पूछ रह जाएगी, तो पूछ को रहने मत दीजिए, पूछ को हाथी के साथ ही टाई करके रखिए। और ये अलग अलग तरह के इस तरह का रजिस्ट्रेशन उससे, बाकी कोई भी इंडस्ट्री इंडिया में आती है इन्वायरमेंटल रीजन से, अदर रीजन से, सेफ्टी के लिए उसमें कई प्रोटेक्शन है, तो वो रहनी चाहिए। जैसे फैक्ट्री एक्ट को उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए, वो फैक्ट्री एक्ट का फैक्ट्री लाइसेंस लेना चाहिए। उसके बाद में लोकल पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड का लाइसेंस होना चाहिए, ईएसआई पीएफ वगैरह का रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए पर वर्कर की सेफ्टी के लिए, उनके फ्यूचर के लिए। और जो अदर लाइसेंस है एज पर द साइज ऑफ इंडस्ट्री, for the teeny, for MSME, for the large industries, there are various requirement already existing. So those should be complied, but we should not put any special requirement in the act for the units, for the industry which are using agroforestry. Agroforestry में अब क्या है, आज वहाँ आता है, वहाँ हम लोग ये लाइसेंस लो, रजिस्ट्रेशन कराओ, ये नहीं है वो नहीं है, उससे फायदा क्या हो रहा है। आज हम लोग देख चुके हैं 2002 से 2022 के अंदर पूरा मतलब इंडस्ट्री ऑन डिक्लाइन, इसके प्राइसेस जो है वो नीचे जा रहे हैं। अगर डिमांड ज्यादा होगी, कि ये एक पूरा इससे सर्कल है, अगर डिमांड ज्यादा होगी तो प्राइस बढ़ेगी, प्राइस बढ़ेगी तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा फार्मर्स इसमें अट्रैक्ट होंगे, वो ज्यादा माल लगाएंगे और इंडस्ट्री ग्रो करेगी। जब इंडस्ट्री ग्रो करती है तो साथ ही फिर कई और चीजें भी ग्रो करती है, फिर क्वालिटी पैरामीटर्स आ जाते हैं, फिर ब्रांडिंग आ जाती है, फिर रिसर्च आ जाता है और फिर मार्केटिंग आ जाती है। तो एक साइजेबल इंडस्ट्री होगी तब जाके वो एक इंडियन ब्रांड होगा, उसको हम लोग इंटरनेशनली प्रमोट कर सकते हैं। MDF, made in India, particle board made in India, and definitely India is enjoying much better reputation than China, मतलब at least earlier reputation। अभी तो चाइना के भी बहुत अच्छे अच्छे प्रोडक्ट आ रहे हैं, वो इंटरनेशनल प्रोडक्ट को compete कर रहे हैं, तो यहाँ भी आएगा। तो मेरी इतनी ही गुजारिश है। और मेरे पास वो प्रेजेंटेशन भी है जो मैंने प्राइम मिनिस्टर सर को भेजा था, जिसको उन्होंने देख के फिर आगे फॉरवर्ड किया for the wider circulation and consult. So अगर डॉक्टर सिंह बोलेंगे तो briefly मैं उस presentation को भी run कर सकता हूँ, और otherwise बाद में आपको time permit करेगा तो आप देख लीजिएगा.
थैंक यू
धन्यवाद.
सर, थैंक यू. हम पहले हम जितना आपने प्रश्न उठाए हैं और जितनी अपेक्षाएं रखी हैं वो सभी के मद्देनजर मुझे लगता है कि हम लोग को एक बार प्रेजेंटेशन को रन थ्रू कर ले तो ऋत्विक दत्ता जी अगर हमें परमिशन देंगे. ऋत्विक जी, आप कुछ ओपनिंग रिमार्क करना चाहेंगे या हम पहले प्रेजेंटेशन कर लें?
मैं प्रेफर करूंगा कि आपका प्रेजेंटेशन के बाद जो कमेंट्स होंगे दैट विल बी बेटर.
यस यस, थैंक यू, थैंक यू. तो अभी प्रभुता, आई रिक्वेस्ट.
Good evening, respected panelists, respected Director IWST. I would like to say that this draft act has been formulated with a painstaking effort of our Director, Dr. MP Singh, with a prolonged deliberation with various stakeholders. Since it is a legal document, I will restrict myself strictly to the written provisions of the act rather than giving any personal comments. Yeah, the gist of the presentation involves objectives, short title, extent and comments, definitions, constitution of wood councils at national, state and regional level, promotion and facilitation regarding framework on farming agreements, standards regarding planting stocks, protocols regarding legality of farm wood, penalties and jurisdiction, and miscellaneous provisions. Coming to the main objectives, this act is to promote availability of certified or accredited quality planting stock. It is to provide a framework for electronic certificate of origin and ownership, and establish a standard for legality of farm wood. It is to promote efficient, transparent and barrier-free interstate and intrastate trade and commerce of farm wood, to establish a national framework on agreement for farm wood, to facilitate establishment and promotion of farm wood-based enterprises and matters connected therein or incidental thereto. We all know that increasing tree cover is an effective mechanism to fight the climate change crisis arising out of increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And agriculture lands in India provides an opportunity to supply wood along with the food, while simultaneously meeting the objective of creating carbon sink, which is also in line with India's commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement. Forests in India, although seemingly adequate in area, are primarily committed to the demands such as fuel wood, fodder, and timber for indigenous people, and are required to be maintained and improved for various ecosystem services and conservation of biological diversity, hence limiting the production of wood. Growing of trees on private land outside forest has played an important role in catering to domestic timber demand in India, and stabilizing the forest and tree cover of the country by not only adding to area under tree cover, but also providing a substitute to the timber harvested from forest and hence conserving the forest for ecological functions. So it is necessary to transcend the boundaries of the forest in order to meet India's wood requirement from within the country that we can refer as Atmanirbharata, and to reduce pressure on the forest and consequently to increase carbon sequestration by various landscapes to fight global warming for meeting countries' international commitments to achieve carbon neutrality. And hence it is necessary to have a standard for the legality and chain of custody of farm wood that is accepted worldwide. So we can call it as vocal for local and promote export of wood and wood-based products. So therefore, it is expedient to enact a legal framework for hassle-free transportation, marketing, and utilization of wood that is grown on non-forested areas in order to promote the growing of trees outside the forest and double the income of farmers. So the chapter 1 involves title, extent, and commencement. Coming to the definitions, the important definitions I would like to draw your attention is Agri-Wood India. That means the standard developed for timber legality assessment and verification of legality and legal origin of farm wood and farm wood products in India. And tree outside forest means trees located on all lands excluded from the definition of forest as per the prevalent laws and their interpretation subject to the limitation of their applicability to private property. And that include trees on farmlands, built up areas, both in rural and urban areas, trees that are planted, domesticated or grown on private lands, trees growing in meadows, pastoral areas, on farms, or in towns, gardens, and parks, and trees growing on lands using alley cropping, shifting cultivation, permanent tree cover crops, for example, the plantation crops such as coffee and cocoa, etc., windbreaks, hedgerows, home gardens, and fruit tree plantations. Tree outside forest timber, which may be also referred as Vanetar Casta, farm wood, or agri-wood, that includes timber, small timber, fuel wood, and all other parts of the tree outside forest when they have fallen or have been felled, or all wood, whether cut up or fashioned or hollowed out of any purpose or not. And it shall not be understood as forest produce or specified forest produce within the meaning of the provisions of the Indian Forest Act or any other state or central acts. And it shall not be understood as scheduled farmers produce under the state APMC Act and regulation. And it shall not be understood as biological resource within the meaning of the provisions of the Biological Diversity Act. And it shall include trees, plantations grown on lands allotted to claimants under the Forest Right Act 2006, the Patta lands allotted under FRA. And it shall not be understood as an essential article or commodity under any central or state essential article or commodity control or regulation acts. Imported wood, that means all the wood or wood products imported from other countries. Tree growers. Tree growers means individuals or organizations engaged in the production of farm wood by themselves or by hired laborers or otherwise, and includes farmers, farm producer organizations, forest protection committees, wood-based industries, companies, partnership firms, limited liability partnerships, cooperative societies and societies, and any associations or body of persons duly incorporated or recognized as a group under any non-ongoing programs, schemes or resolutions of the central government or the state government. Coming to trader or agent, it means a person who buys the farm wood or imports wood by way of interstate or intrastate trade or a combination of thereof, either for self or on behalf of one or more persons for the purpose of wholesale trade, retail, end use, value addition, processing, manufacturing, export, consumption, or for such other purposes. Interstate trade and intrastate trade, that has been defined. Coming to electronic trading and transaction platform, that means a platform set up to facilitate direct and online buying and selling for conduct of trade and commerce of farm wood through a network of electronic devices and internet applications, where each such transaction results in physical delivery of farm wood. Then coming to the farming agreement, that means a written agreement between tree growers and sponsors, such as trade and commerce agreement, where the ownership of farm wood remains with the tree grower during production, and he gets the price of produce on its delivery as per the agreed terms with the sponsor. Whereas the production agreement means the sponsor agrees to provide farm services either fully or partially and to bear the risk of output. And any other such agreements are a combination of agreements specified above. The sponsorer means a person, trader or agent who has entered into a farming agreement with the tree grower for growing trees. Local bodies means the panchayat, municipalities, by whatever name called, within the meaning of Article 243B and Article 243Q of Constitution of India. Coming to wood-based industries, this means any industry which processes wood as its raw material and includes sawmill, veneer, housing, construction, packaging, furniture, handicrafts, sports, railways, shipbuilding, mining, bioenergy, pulp and paper, plywood, panel, etc. industries, sandalwood, khatta wood, agar wood, and such other industries. Coming to the chapter 2nd, which describes about farm wood or TOF timber or agri-wood or Manetar Kasta, and some of the names shall not be subjected to any felling transit or any such regulatory regime under provisions of any other central or state acts. There shall be no restriction or licensing for the establishment of a wood-based industry in any part of the country under the provisions of any other central or state acts or rules therein. However, the state government shall prescribe for IT-based online registration of such wood-based industries and enterprises, which shall conform to the procurement of wood from legitimate source. So each wood-based industry shall maintain and regulatory update records as per the formats or IT-based system as prescribed by the concerned state or union territories. Any tree grower, trader, or electronic trading and transaction platform shall have the freedom to carry on interstate or intrastate trade and commerce in farm wood subject to the provisions of this act. Coming to the 3rd chapter, it is about the wood councils. The Constitution of National Wood Council. The central government shall prescribe for Constitution of National Wood Council to provide for improved linkages between tree growers, traders or agents, wood-based industries or enterprises, research institutes and related government representatives, including the states, for augmenting sustainable supply of raw materials to wood-based industries, and substitution of import of wood and wood products to India, and promotion of export of wood products from the country. The National Wood Council shall be under the chairmanship of Minister in charge, MOF, initially, and subsequently under any eminent personality from the wood sector nominated by Minister in charge, MOF. The Secretariat of National Wood Council shall initially function at Institute of Wood Science and Technology, an institute under ICFRE, and subsequently at any institute or body decided by National Wood Council. The National Wood Council shall strive for the establishment of National Tree Outside Forest Financing Fund and frame rules and to support activities ancillary to promotion and facilitation of growing of trees outside forest. Then constitution of Wood Council at state level and the regional level. Wood Council shall be constituted at the state level as well as regional or district level by resolution of respective state governments. The chairmanship of such council shall be an eminent personality from wood sector nominated by Chief Minister of respective state. The state and regional or district level wood council shall function under the overall guidance of the National Wood Council. The regional or district level wood councils shall function under the overall guidance of the respective state level wood council, and the decisions of their respective state level wood council shall be binding on them. Now, coming to the functions of state level and regional level wood councils, they shall facilitate vertical integration of the above mentioned linkages between all the stakeholders, shall ensure less transportation cost and may fix minimum and maximum price of local farm wood in trade areas based on market chain analysis, and shall remove the widespread mismatch between demand and supply of farm wood at the state and the regional level, may have their own electronic trading and transaction platform for intrastate trade and commerce in a trade area following the chain of custody regime electronically. Powers of state level wood council. The state level wood council shall be the final authority on the establishment and promotion of farm wood based industries to encourage all farm wood industries, especially new establishment, to promote farm forestry plantations and monitor progress of the same to ensure sustainable wood supply to all wood based industries in the state. The state level wood council shall be the final authority on demarcation and designation of any catchment area for the trader, agent and sponsor so as to encourage tree growers, that is farmers majorly, to grow trees on their lands. It shall decide on incentive program, if any, for the farmers who grow trees depending upon the succession rate after 1 year of plantation for the continuing the plantation for longer time. The state level wood council shall be empowered to provide for upgradation and deployment of tools and techniques for on-site harvesting, conversion, peeling, veneering, impregnation, modification, seasoning, storage and other such value additions to farm wood, notwithstanding any other provisions in any other acts. The chapter 4, it deals with promotion and facilitation. Power to make rules for national framework on framing agreements. The central government or the National Wood Council shall prescribe rules or guidelines for a national framework on farming agreements between tree growers and sponsors for growing trees that protect and empower tree growers to engage with sponsors at a mutually agreed remunerative price framework in a fair and transparent manner and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Power to make rules for standards with regard to the planting stock. The central government or the National Wood Council shall have the power to make standards or delegate such powers to any other institution to establish systems for the following. That is, release of new clones or cultivars, wood productivity claims by any entity, accreditation of nurseries and certification of seeds and quality planting stock. Power to make standards or protocols regarding the legality of farm wood. The central government or the National Wood Council shall have the power to make rules or delegate its function for the establishment of electronic trading and transaction platform and information technology based systems, also through the mobile apps, for issuance of certificate of origin and ownership to all tree growers, which may be used for all purposes of trading and transaction of farm wood, insurance and collateral guarantee for banking support, including future trading. To include following information and documents needed to fulfill the requirements of due diligence system. Should include description, including trade name and type of the relevant commodities and products, as well as where the applicable, the common name of the species and its full scientific name, the quantity of the relevant products, maybe numbers, mass, volume, etc. Identification of the area, that is district, state of production, then geo coordinates of all the plots of land where relevant product produced with date, names and address of the business persons from whom they have been supplied relevant products and to whom the products have been supplied. Then authorize local bodies to be the second party certifiers for the issuance of the COO to the first party, that is tree growers, in the IT based system mentioned and risk assessment mechanism, verifiable through remote controls for due diligence. To authorize traders, agents and industries as third party certifier through IT based systems for issuance of COO and to mark and grade farm wood according to the Agri-Wood India standards developed for the purpose, stating that these timber or wood products are not from the forest, requiring compliance with criteria and indicators of sustainable forest management. To authorize a body such as Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, an autonomous body of Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change, to own the Agri-Wood India standards, to prescribe a system in India for electronic registration of trader or agent and the modalities of chain of custody along production, harvesting, transport, trading and consumption in order to corroborate the legality and chain of custody of farm wood with minimal cost to the tree growers and sponsors. To authorize the state or UT governments to create state TOF financing fund and frame rules. The state TOFIF shall be managed according to the provisions of government accounting rule, supported by national international donations, stakeholders contributions, etc. The TOFIF aims to assist promotional activities of tree outside forest. The chapter 5 includes penalties and jurisdiction. Whoever contravenes the provisions of this act or the rules made thereunder shall be liable to pay a fine levied by the regional level or state level wood council or the national level wood council. It shall not be less than 25,000 rupees, but which may be extended up to 25 lakhs. And where the contravention is continuing one, the further penalty not exceeding 5,000 rupees for each day after the first day during which the contravention continues. Then appeals. Appeal against the decision of the regional or district level wood council shall lie only with the state level wood council, and appeal against the decision of state level wood council shall only lie in high court having the jurisdiction over the concerned state or union territories. Bar of jurisdiction of civil court. So no civil court shall have jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceedings in respect of any matter, the cognizance of which can be taken and disposed of by any authority empowered by or under this act or the rules made thereunder. So the chapter 6, which is the last chapter, which includes the miscellaneous provisions, power of central government to give directions. The central government may, for carrying out the provisions of this act, give such instructions, directions, orders, or issue guidance as it may deem necessary to any authority or officer subordinate to central government, any state government, or any authority or officer subordinate to a state government, and traders and sponsors. Power of central government to develop district certification and legality regime for timber from forests. The central government may develop or delegate its power to develop Indian forest certification scheme for forest management as per National Working Plan Code and chain of custody of timber and such products obtained for such forests. Indemnity for acts done in good faith. No suit, prosecution, or other legal proceedings shall lie against the central government or the state government or any officer of the central government or state government or any other person in respect of anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under this act or of any rules and or orders made thereunder. So act to override other laws. Save as otherwise provided in this act, the provisions of this act shall have effect notwithstanding anything inconsistent therewith contained in any state act or any other law for time being in force, or any custom or usage or any instrument having effect by virtue of any law. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Prabuddha, for a nice presentation. We have dealt with all the provisions of this act. Now we have presented the provisions from our side. Now I request our learned panelists, Shri Ritwik Dhattaji, to give us the guidance and observations.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me and to give my comments. You know, I've gone through it. I had received it a few days back also, and thank you for sharing it. For me, you know, it's an important step, but what I would like is at this stage, maybe it's not possible for me to give my comments para-wise and section-wise on all the provisions of the law itself. But at the same time, you know, there are certain points that I would like, irrespective of what has been, you know, put in this draft bill or act that has been prepared. You know, I like to highlight few of the aspects which are part of the note also that was circulated. And I think first and foremost, I would say that, you know, before we look at a separate act for promoting tree or farm wood, we must also identify what are the key problems or hurdles that one faces so far as raising trees for wood industry is concerned in farmlands. Well, you know, I'll start with the Indian Forest, the National Forest Policy 1988 itself. If you look at para 3.2. The para 3.2 is very important. Para 3.2 discourages the diversion of agricultural land for the purpose of forestry. So it says very clearly that good land for agriculture should not be diverted for the purpose of agroforestry. So, and the Supreme Court in Godavarman has used a very interesting word. The word that the Supreme Court has used is that though normally a policy does not have teeth, it is not a law, but the National Forest Policy has a flavor of a statute. They've used the word saying it has a statutory flavor. And because it is a statutory flavor, the National Forest Policy can be implemented like the law of the land. In Lafarge, the Supreme Court reiterated this by saying, well, in every case of diversion of forest, you must take into account the National Forest Policy. So my first submission will be here, or my first comment will be that we will have to first start with the policy itself. Does the National Forest Policy itself promote or create hurdles towards raising trees for the purpose of timber outside forest land? And to me, if you look at 3.2, diversion of good land meant for agriculture is something which is to be discouraged, because these are areas that are meant for growing food. So in a way, the first point would be that normally agricultural land is to grow food. And the second point, which is their largely policy, has been that, grow more food, after that cash crop, but forest is the last in terms of the priority. That would be the first important point. The second would be, a very clear, which is also mentioned in the note that's submitted, is that we want to plant trees outside forest. But then for that, I would say that there has to be a very clear understanding of what is a forest and a forest land. As many of you would be aware, the Supreme Court way back in 96 and then reiterated in Lafarge has said very clearly that the process for identification of forest in terms of the dictionary meaning shall be completed by all the states. I'm not aware of each and every state, but I'm aware that the bulk of states in India is yet to constitute a committee and actually complete the task for identification of areas which comply with the definition of forest. You take the example of Haryana. Haryana is not yet completed or even not initiated the process to constitute expert committee to come out with a definition and identify areas that are forest. So the thing that will come in tomorrow is that one thinks that this area is outside a forest. You do plantation there, you raise it, and then find that actually there's a dispute because this area still comes under a dictionary meaning forest. Or it is under a category where under some norms, it is to be treated as forest for the purposes of Forest Conservation Act. These are issues that will come in, and I foresee that coming, which needs to be addressed. So my point would be that the exercise that has to be completed for identification of areas which are forest must be completed before we actually think which are the areas within forest and which are the areas outside forest. Now, very important, I would also highlight that somewhere down the line, it's all those which you have raised, whether it's a wood council, the appellate authorities, those are points where the finer nitty-gritty can be worked out. But I'm also saying that some kind of assessment will have to be brought in respect of the trees that are to be planted. Now, if you look at it very clearly, in many of the instances across India, you are facing a lot of resistance towards renewable energy. One was talking about, see, there's a problem when you want to mine coal, you have problem when you want to do hydropower project. Today, you have a lot of opposition that is coming in because you want to set up a wind farm, you want to put in a solar, and there is objection that is coming in. There are numerous cases in the NGT where people are saying, well, this is not permissible. Now, the issue that they are raising is not pollution, it is siting. And I would say that at certain level, if one is doing some kind of impact assessment, that which are the permissible species which are to be planted in certain zones, this council or whatever that is proposed should come out with an approved list. That approved list should also have a detailed mechanism so that all the reasons why agroforestry or trees outside forest met with objection or opposition from various quarters will have to be addressed. I am not, all of you know the subject much more than me, but why was the whole issue of eucalyptus, whole issue of acacia, whole issue of Prosopis julifera, why is there an objection and opposition to them? I would say that at that level, some kind of assessment, I'm not saying it would have to be a process where you say you will need A, B, C, D to be done, otherwise no. Some kind of assessment, a liberal process, let it be done through a very, very open, transparent process, which says if this is a water stressed area, what are the kind of species that are approved for the purpose of agroforestry? What are the species which will ensure that there is no alien invasive species? Because these are issues that will come in whenever we go in for aggressive promotion of any particular mode, whether it is agriculture, whether it is agroforestry, anything that is aggressively promoted will have to consider the social impact, it will have to consider the environmental impact. Now, what would happen if you have monocultures after monocultures? Yes, it may have less impact, but I think we need to still have a proper debate about it. When we look at poplar all across in Yamuna Nagar and all, kilometers after kilometers you find them, then the market collapses, then what happens? This is something that, has to be considered. Next, I would say, and, in the meeting where Honorable Minister was there, this is a point that I raised there, that we must also look at livelihoods. Some kind of assessment will have to be done in terms of what would be the livelihood impact of converting large areas into agroforestry. Again, all of you know the subject well, but the thing is that if you are growing an area with agriculture, that cycle actually engages a lot of people, right from harvesting, right from sowing, right from de-weeding. There is an entire lot of people, landless people who get employment because of repeated engagement in an agricultural operation. So if you're growing wheat or if you're growing rice, you will need laborers at least 4 occasions during the growing season and from the planting to the harvesting season. If it's a total process of about 4 months to 5 months, on the other hand, if that same hectare is actually diverted for agroforestry, what will be the total engagement of people? I'm again clarifying that I'm nowhere suggesting that I'm saying you should not do it. I'm just suggesting that the law, policy and process must factor in the income that is going to come in after 6 years or 7 years, as opposed to the loss of income or easy money or immediate cash flow that happens after every 3 months when it comes to agriculture, and the loss that will happen in view of many other agricultural laborers who will lose their livelihood during the stage where you have to wait for 5 to 6 years, for the plants to trees to grow and the harvesting to take place. These are critical areas that I would suggest, needs to be discussed in. There is one more, and again, I want to tell you very, I'm taking it as an informal gathering. I'm an environmental activist, proud of it, but I'm a great promoter of wood. If anyone comes to my office, you will find that 90% of the material that I use is only wood. I personally support it, but at the same time, I think wood industry will have to find a way in which it reduces the wastage that occurs. So when once somebody is using steel and others, the whole idea is that the amount that is wasted in terms of the final purchase is less. In wood, from the stage when the tree is there to the stage when the final product takes place, how much of wood is lost? And how much wood is lost through different kind of wastage, and what do we have in our order to avoid that wastage from happening is a very critical one. As of today, a significant part of it is burnt or used by different sectors as waste wood and others in brick kilns to other places. Now therefore, to that extent, the entire benefit that comes from wood as a carbon sink is far outweighed if it ends up in a very highly um, uh, um, uh, wasteful way of being burnt in clinkers and in brick kilns and many other places. These kind of impacts are very, very critical. And finally, I would say that I think if we want to look at it, we need to look into what are the possible amendments that have to be done in all the laws. Now, I can share, and again, many of you would be aware, many years back, one fellow came back from somewhere in US, and he came back to India and said, what do you want to do? And he said, the best thing to do is actually to set up a processing plant to manufacture plywood and others. And he set it up in Bareilly. And he set up and he brought in good equipment, spent a lot of money. And he set it up actually next to the town itself, in the close proximity to the town. It was 20 years back. The poor fellow came to me. He said, well, I have complied with all the law. I have brought in all the machines. I have got a purchase agreement. I have got where I'll get all the timber. And yet he was closed down. Despite his trying every single means, he was unable to get his plant opened. So when I asked him very clearly why it has happened, he said, well, under the sawmill rules, you cannot have a sawmill within such and such kilometers of a reserve forest or a protected forest. Now, when we looked at the map, I could not see any reserve forest or protected forest. It turned out that the nursery of the forest department over just half a hectare was declared as a reserve forest. As a result of which 5-kilometer radius around it, or whatever is it, I'm not into the facts of it now, 5 to 4 kilometers, you could not establish a sawmill. Now, as a result of this, areas which ideally should have been, because the whole idea of that rule was do not establish next to a forest because it might be difficult to distinguish what is illegally brought in, what is legally brought in. But today, where RF areas are declared or exist where there is no forest, we still have sawmill rules which prohibit, location of wood-based units principally on the basis of distance from the nearest reserve forest or protected forest. And where reserve forest and protected forest has really little to do with tree cover. You can actually have a legally reserved forest, as you know, even if it is barren or even if it's 1 hectare or even there is no ecological criteria. That also, I think, would need to be considered in the law so that there is a overarching principle or provision which can actually do away with it in some creative way. I can go on, but these are my preliminary thought, because unless you look at the sawmill regulation also, along with promoting agroforestry, we will not go ahead. And this is also where one will need to work with the state, given the fact that de facto all these rules are state subject. We know that forest is in the concurrent list, but for all purposes, these regulations have come in largely within the domain of the state's rules, because the central government really has very limited role when it has come to sawmill regulations and others. So that also will be something which has to be considered while framing any law, policy, or as was said, whether it is an SOP or whether it's a guideline. Though I think at the end of it, a legislation is better because it can be enforced. But if the purpose is to promote it, then we will have to address all that comes with it, along with the risk that comes with it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ritwik Dhattaji, for your thoughtful remarks. In fact, you have really raised different dimensions connected with the issue, and we took many things granted, and we did not ponder over the other details. I agree with you, but at the same time, we have looked at the burden, or you can say the hurdles in the growth of agroforestry and wood-based industry in the country. And during the lockdown period, we had intense consultation with all the industry, all the stakeholders. In fact, from the farm laws came into existence, that time all the industry, including FIPI, Shri Bajankaji also made representation to Agriculture Ministry that all this timber produced from the agroforestry should be defined under the farm produce. Somehow that time Ministry of Agriculture referred back that reference to the Ministry of Environment and Forest, saying that anything connected with wood has to be dealt by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So they did not include, and then now the farm laws are gone. So we thought that let us have a framework, legal framework for the farm wood. Not only that, what happens, we are in a regime where we define timber from the Forest Act, and anything which has been exempted from the permit, there is no way to establish the legality of that timber in India and outside. And all the international conventions, all the other countries, they follow a system of the legality of timber, irrespective of the origin. So we thought that in India also we should have a framework for all the wood produced from the agroforestry. So once we say that we have a legal system, legal framework for this wood, then most of our problem gets solved. We don't need to go to for the certification under the forest management. Otherwise, it is very ridiculous that in India, 90% of the wood supply is happening from the agroforestry. But we don't have any certified wood. We have to go to the FSC or to the PEFC or other certification scheme under forest management. So that is really difficult to happen, and it will have the cost to the farmers, and we don't get the recognition worldwide. So it is the time, seeing the growth of this sector and the future growth of this sector, we need to have a framework. We felt so after long derivation that we need to have a framework where we can legalize this timber also, and take care of other issues also. So the whole issue of the facilitation was there. So it's just I'm just giving a background before I hand over to Shri Bajankaji to give his thought on the comments and on the presentation of this draft act. So in a nutshell, what we are trying, because all the states have got their own rules, I agree with that, and they have different kind of rules. Even what came to our knowledge that in Tamil Nadu, they have declared timber from the agroforestry as the essential commodity. So now they cannot transport it to the other state. Even the factory was getting supply from Tamil Nadu and they are not getting now. So other different kind of situations are arising in this sector. So we thought to give a framework where we make this thing uniform, and uniform in the sense, and it doesn't apply to all the state rules with respect to farmwood. We are not tampering, or we are not saying anything about the all the provisions related to the forest. That let that provision be there. But how far we in India, or how long can we afford of putting the provisions of the forest on the timber, on the wood coming from the farmer's field? It is a big question. So we debated on this. We thought that we will give a framework, and that is how we came out with this framework, so that farmers get relieved. And they see, so many issues are coming actually. When we go into the details, each state is having different kind of situation. So in fact, as Bajanka sir has also mentioned, that even the provision of registration was not utilized. So when the guidelines have been made, so it is better to have an act, to have the uniform application throughout the states, because all states have their own. After the 5 years of promulgation of the guidelines in 2017, I'm not able to see any state implementing it till now. So this is the condition in India. And so who are the sufferers? It's the farmers and the industry. And because no new industry could come in many parts of the country, that's why farmers were not getting the good price of their produce. So it is a question whether we want to facilitate the farmers, and agroforestry is not a substitute for production of the food. It is a supplementary activity, and it depends on the market demand, and then they have the diversification of income that has been recognized under the agroforestry policy of Government of India 2014. So we thought that, and all blame is coming on the MOEF or the forest department, and even the Ministry of Agriculture, they also have a point that this sector is not progressing because of the legal provisions in different states and different interpretation. And we had a regime for, you can say, 75 years, that we will have the transit system, we will have the control. But now new regime, now we talk about the chain of custody. We should talk about the certification. We should talk about the provision of legality. So that is the system where one can have the ownership certificate, then transport the material to the industry, and industry can produce the product which will be from the verified sources. So this is the regime followed worldwide. In fact, if India wants to develop in this sector, otherwise now also we have started importing with the growth of our population and the need in the middle class segment. India will be a big importer of the wood products also. Now we are importing all the solid wood. We are largest importer of teak and pine in the world. So, and when India is the indigenous place for teak, genetic material from India has gone to other countries, and they are supplying back the timber. So this is the situation. So in this scenario, we thought that we will give a framework. So now over to Shri Bhajanka sir.
Thank you, Dr.
Meantime,
Singh.
I request Amrit, if you are there, please put on your video so you can make your observations afterwards.
Really, it was sheer pleasure to hear Ritwik ji, and he has thrown light on many facets of the contradictions in the Forest Acts. I fully agree with him, because in the 2010 10-11, we initiated to put up a MDF plant in Andhra. We got the license and then we are searching the land. So again, that condition was there. There should not be forest within 5 kilometers. So what do you mean? It is recorded as forest in the government record. Then many areas were recorded as forest where in fact there was not a single bush standing on that plot of land, but it was in record. An act said any plot of land where there is a cluster of tree would be regarded forest. Apart from that, any plot of land which is recorded as forest will remain forest even if there is not a bush. So these type of contradictions are there. So while the mentality of all the the bureaucrats or whoever were involved was to make it as complex as possible. So Dr. Singh, my first that observation would be you make this as simple as possible. And I don't know whether you have given a provision that it will override all other acts. So whether it is possible that this would be agreed by the government and they will come up with anything that all the existing Forest Act or any other thing will not be applicable over and above this act. So I'm not sure. And so it cannot be overriding all other acts is not the possibility I foresee in near future. So this we should take care. If it is that this is the final act and it overrides everything, whatever mentioned here, that would be applicable, then it is very good if it is technically possible. And there are, because we all know that 19 मतलब इंडिया में लाइक हम लोग बोलते कुछ हैं करते कुछ हैं बहुत सालों तक इसेंशियल कमोडिटी एक्ट में राइस एंड ये आटा गेहूं मतलब इनका कंट्रोल था ऐसे बिक नहीं सकता था लेकिन ऑल ओवर इंडिया बिकॉज ओपन मार्केट होते थे माल आता था बिकता था तो माना तो ये जाता है कि ऐसा बनाना जिसका पालन नहीं करवा सकते हो वो अपने आप एक क्राइम है लेकिन इंडिया में तो आज हम लोग देखेंगे तो ऐसे बहुत से लॉ हैं जिनको ना तो कोई सीरियसली लेता है ना जिनको मनवाने की कोशिश करता है तो हमारे अभी इसके अंदर हमको कोशिश ये पड़ेगी कि तो इसको आपने बहुत अच्छा ड्राफ्ट किया है आई एम प्राय आपने सब चीज़ों को कवर करने की ट्राई की है तो ये बहुत अच्छा है लेकिन अब एक सेकंड एक्सरसाइज अगर आप इसकी भावना को रखते हुए अगर इसे थोड़ा और सिंपल कर सकते हैं तो मेरे ख्याल से और ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा तो ये एक के बारे में है एंड आपने ये जो सजेशन दिया कि जब इसका नोटिफिकेशन आए उस नोटिफिकेशन के साथ ही any state government when they will notify like provisions under this act along with that they will notify the formats for any other like for the statistical region or anything any registration is even if needed then otherwise there are many agencies their requirement is enormous so उनको ही करते करते आदमी परेशान हो जाता है और ये तो गाँव के अंदर छोटी पिलिंग लगेगी गाँव के अंदर छोटी बैंडसो लगेगी तो उनको तो हम लोग को बहुत सिंप्लीफाई करना पड़ेगा कि भी अप टू ए लेवल मैंने जो अपना करियर चालू किया था वो चालू किया था कि एसएसआई प्लाईवुड इंडस्ट्री से उस समय एक नया प्रोविजन आया था कि एसएसआई के अंदर अगर प्लाईवुड इंडस्ट्री लगती है उसके 50 से नीचे लेबर होते हैं तो उसको इंडस्ट्रियल लाइसेंस नहीं चाहिए और उसके पहले जो इंडस्ट्रियल लाइसेंस लेना था वो टेढ़ी खीर थी वो दिल्ली में जाता था एक फ्लावर मिल का लाइसेंस लेना है दिल्ली जाएगा फिर उसमें जो कंसर्न मिनिस्टर है वो इन्वॉल्व होता था, हाईएस्ट लेवल पे डिसीजन होता था। तो उस समय जो है एक ये आया था करीब, मेरे ख्याल से बीपी सिंह जी शायद फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर थे उस समय। कई चीजें थोड़ी उन्होंने वो की थी, एसएसआई का प्रोविजन लाए थे। तो मैंने फर्स्ट यूनिट 7.5 लाख के अंदर एसएसआई यूनिट के हिसाब से लगाई थी, और उसके बाद में वो लिमिट बढ़ती गई। फिर तो 88 अगर लाइसेंसिंग का ही नरसिम्हा राव जी के टाइम पर हटा दिया, तो उसके बाद में फिर इतनी प्रोग्रेस हुई। उसके पहले तो बंधा हुआ था, बस जिनके पास लाइसेंस है वो है लाइसेंस राज। अगर बिरला ने कार का बना लिया तो टाटा रगड़ के हार गए, उनको कार का लाइसेंस नहीं मिला। टाटा को ट्रक का ट्रक का नहीं मिला। स्टील उन्होंने गवर्नमेंट के लिए रिजर्व कर दिया, तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर में किसी में कोई स्टील का किसी को टाटा के बाद में दूसरे किसी को नहीं मिला। तो ये जो चीजें हैं, विसंगतियां बहुत हैं। तो हमारा जो भी, एक तो इसके पीछे थोड़ा सा मिनिस्टर का या किसी का थोड़ा सा वो रहना पड़ेगा, हम लोगों को लॉबिंग करनी पड़ेगी इसमें, बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग लॉबिंग करनी पड़ेगी। उसके बाद में ये चीजें आगे आएगी। और लेकिन मैं आई फुली एग्री विथ यू, जनरली आपने बहुत अच्छा एक ड्राफ्ट किया है, और दत्ता जी से मैं सहमत हूँ कि अभी जो एग्जिस्टिंग उसमें और इसमें ये जो कंट्राडिक्शंस हैं उनकी हम लोग कैसे टेक केयर करेंगे। या तो जो मेन एक्ट है साथ ही साथ उसका भी हम दें कि भाई इसमें क्या क्या चेंज होना चाहिए टू इनेबल आवर दिस ट्री आउटसाइड फॉरेस्ट एक्ट। तो इसका भी साथ में एक बना के क्या क्या और एक्ट है उनके अंदर क्या क्या सुधार करना पड़ेगा इसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए। तो धन्यवाद, मेरा यही सजेशन था।
थैंक यू। इनफैक्ट सर क्या है कि इंडियन फॉरेस्ट एक्ट के अलावे सभी स्टेट्स का अपना अभी एक्ट, बहुत सारे साउदर्न स्टेट्स में तो सभी का है, बाकी कुछ नॉर्दर्न स्टेट्स में कुछ स्टेट्स को अपना है, कुछ इंडियन फॉरेस्ट एक्ट को अमेंडमेंट के साथ में फॉलो करती है, और सभी स्टेट्स का अपना अपना रूल्स भी है। और यही कारण है कि जब गाइडलाइंस वुड बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री का इशू हुआ तो अभी तक स्टेट्स अपने रूल्स को मॉडिफाई नहीं कर पाई है। एक स्टेट पंजाब ने किया है अपने रूल्स को मॉडिफाई, अभी हरियाणा का ड्राफ्ट कैबिनेट में गया हुआ है, उसने भी मॉडिफाई नहीं कर पाए हैं, सिर्फ पंजाब कर पाई है। और आई एम yet to see any state which has modified their rules according to the guidelines given by the ministry. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है हम इस सभी स्टेट को एक साथ लेके चलने में, और इसीलिए मुझे लगता है कि उस रास्ते में जाएंगे तो हमें अनदर 5-10 years लगेगा। इसलिए टीओएफ को हमें फ्री करना चाहिए फ्रॉम द प्रोविजंस ऑफ द इंडियन फॉरेस्ट एक्ट, क्योंकि ये और कोशिश करनी चाहिए हम ऐसा फ्रेमवर्क दें ताकि जो उसका चेन ऑफ कस्टडी है, उसकी लीगलिटी है, उसको हम वो प्रूफ हो जाए। उसको आजकल आईटी के बेस पर इतने बहुत सारे कंट्रीज में ऐप बने हुए हैं, इवन जापान में भी बहुत पहले 10 साल पहले उन्होंने इम्प्लीमेंट किया है। तो ये आईटी बेस्ड ऐप पॉसिबल है जिससे कि हम चेन ऑफ कस्टडी को ट्रैक कर सके, ड्यू डिलीजेंस लगा सके, ताकि हम ये बोल सके कि ये टिम्बर कहाँ से आई है। और रजिस्ट्रेशन का प्रस्ताव इसीलिए रखा है ताकि ये जो अभी जो की परफॉर्मेंस इंडिकेटर जो मिनिस्ट्री के लिए तय हो रही है उसमें भी यही हो रही है कि कितने वुड प्रोडक्शन एग्रो फॉरेस्ट्री से हुए हैं, उसको एक की परफॉर्मेंस इंडेक्स में रखा जा रहा है। तो ये इस तरीके का, इसलिए हमें जरूरी है कि हम सारे इंडस्ट्री का रजिस्ट्रेशन हो, लेकिन एक रिटर्न का सिस्टम हो ताकि हमें मालूम चले कि कितने वुड्स कंज्यूम हो रहे हैं कंट्री में, किस लोकेशन में हो रहे हैं, क्या प्रोडक्ट्स बन रहे हैं। तो ये एक डाटाबेस भी कोई मिनिस्ट्री नहीं कर रही है। मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स में कोई इसका सिस्टम नहीं है। तो इसलिए हम लोग को ये डाटाबेस तो तैयार करना चाहिए ताकि इन फ्यूचर में हम इसके ट्रेंड को समझ सकें और भी पॉलिसी डिसीजन और फैसिलिटेशन का इशूज को कैरी कर सके। ये हमारा
डॉक्टर सिंह एक खाली थोड़ा पॉइंट आउट कर देता हूँ कि आज के दिन जो है जैसे भारत के अंदर जितनी भी वुड वेस्ट इंडस्ट्री है, अभी आज के दिन हर आदमी ने, हर इंडस्ट्री ने जीएसटी का रजिस्ट्रेशन ले लिया, और जीएसटी पूरा आईटी बेस्ड सिस्टम है। तो जीएसटी के अंदर पूरा हर डाटा आ जाता है, जितनी इंडस्ट्री ने रजिस्टर किया वो जीएसटी के पोर्टल पे आ जाएगा। उसके अलावा भारत सरकार का एक स्टैटिस्टिकल डिपार्टमेंट भी है, जहाँ सबको रिटर्न फाइल करनी पड़ती है, वहां भी डिटेल आ जाएगी। और आज के दिन तो आपका जो है ना, मतलब ये तो आपने बहुत अच्छा कहा कि आईटी बेस्ड जो है सारा दुनिया में होता जा रहा है। भारत में आप देख लीजिए, लास्ट 5 साल के अंदर पूरे इनकम टैक्स को उन्होंने आईटी बेस्ड कर दिया, पूरे कंपनी एक्ट को उन्होंने आईटी बेस्ड कर दिया। आज सारी चीजें होती है, तो ये क्योंकि आप सही समय पर इसको बना रहे हैं, तो आईटी बेस्ड तो आपको रखना ही चाहिए। हर जगह उस पर पोर्टल रहेगा, और उसका सिंपल कर दीजिए। ये जो बना रहे हैं उसका एक सिंपल ये हो गया कि दिस इज नॉट डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी। ये एक है जो आप वो उसका साइन करेंगे, इंडस्ट्री के लिए इंफॉर्मेशन देंगे, तो ये इंफॉर्मेशन मेमोरेंडम की तरह है, तो वो आप खाली दे सकते हैं। लेकिन नहीं तो यूपी वाला काम फिर और कहीं नहीं हो जाए। प्लीज सॉरी
हाँ नहीं,
इंटरप्रेट
ये वाला काम नहीं
हाँ,
होगा। उसी को हटाने के लिए हम लोग चाह रहे हैं कि बल्कि नेशनल पोर्टल हो ऑनलाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन का और सबमिशन ऑफ
बहुत
रिटर्न।
सुंदर,
और
बहुत
जो
सुंदर।
मेन इशू है कि हम लोग को चेन ऑफ कस्टडी ऑफ वुड एंड वुड प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्टिफाइड वुड, ये जो आज जो अभी डिमांड है वर्ल्ड में इस चीज का, ये हम लोग को इंडिया को भी अगर डेवलपिंग से डेवलप कंट्री की ओर जाना है तो इस सेक्टर में भी हमें उस रिजीम को अपनाना पड़ेगा जो वर्ल्ड वाइड चल रही है। अभी आप यूरोपियन यूनियन ने भी अपना लीगलिटी ऑफ टिम्बर एक्ट लाए हैं, अभी लैसी एक्ट यूएस का है, तो सभी का अपना अपना एक्ट है जो कि आपको बताना पड़ेगा कि योर टिम्बर इज फ्रॉम लीगल सोर्सेज। तो आप बोलेंगे फार्मवुड से है, तो फार्मवुड से ही होने के लिए उसको बताना पड़ेगा कि फार्मवुड से है, सो दैट नीड्स टू बी सर्टिफाइड इट इज फ्रॉम फार्मवुड। तो ये चीजें वर्ल्ड को बतानी पड़ेगी, इसके लिए सिस्टम रखना पड़ेगा आईटी बेस, ताकि आप चेन ऑफ कस्टडी को
ठीक,
और उसको ओनरशिप को आप ट्रेस कर सके। आप डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करेंगे तो आपका जो है सर्टिफिकेट जो है सो चेन ऑफ कस्टडी का तुरंत मिल जाएगा, सर्टिफाइड वुड का तुरंत मिल जाएगा कि आप किससे प्रोक्योर कर रहे हैं। तो एक ऐप से ही हो सकता है आजकल। आप ऐसे भी मेंटेन कर रहे हैं, मैनुअली मेंटेन कर रहे हैं, अगर ऐप से करेंगे आप ऐप से उसको पेमेंट भी कर सकते हैं, दैट ऑल्सो गेटवे विल बी देयर। तो ये फैसिलिटेशन का ही एक प्रयास है कि हम जब आईटी बेस करेंगे तो ये फैसिलिटेशन होगा। और इवन ये भी फ्यूचर में देखने की बात है कि जो रिकॉर्ड होगा उससे इंश्योरेंस का जो इशू है, जब तक आप क्रिएट नहीं करेंगे फ्रेमवर्क तो कोई भी एजेंसी आपके पास नहीं आएगी। और ये सिर्फ ये शॉर्ट रोटेशन के फार्मवुड के लिए नहीं है, लॉन्ग रोटेशन के फार्मवुड के लिए बहुत बड़ा इशू है। आज जो है सो सैंडलवुड के लिए बहुत बड़ा इशू है, हमेशा किसान आते हैं, दे वांट दिस काइंड ऑफ ओनरशिप सर्टिफिकेट, ये सैंडलवुड उनके उनके फील्ड का है, ये इट इज नॉट फ्रॉम द फॉरेस्ट, सो दैट दे कैन मार्केट इट। इवन लोगों ने तो रोजवुड उगाना छोड़ दिया है, और अभी इंडिया जो है इसलिए साइटिस्ट के लिस्ट में रोजवुड चला गया, और उसके साथ साथ शीशम भी चला गया है। ये इसलिए ये जो इशू है वो इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होता जा रहा है। हम अगर रूट की बात करते हैं तो जब तक आप सिस्टम नहीं बनाएंगे कि हाँ आप कैसे फैसिलिटेट करेंगे, तो उसी तरह से एकेशिया कटेचु जो है सो वो अब विलुप्त हो रहा है, क्योंकि हम लोगों ने सिस्टम नहीं बनाया उसको। जो कोई भी स्पीसीज अगर फॉरेस्ट में आपको विलुप्त हो रही है तो आपको उसको कल्टीवेशन में लेके जाना पड़ेगा। जब तक कल्टीवेशन नहीं होगा तो आप नहीं बचा सकते उस स्पीसीज को, क्योंकि डिमांड तो रहेगा ही रहेगा। तो अभी जो सैंडलवुड का जो हालत हुआ है उसकी वो जो अब, लेकिन किसान अभी आगे आ रहे हैं, और कर्नाटक ने भी काफ़ी लोगों ने कोशिश की है, और यहाँ के लोगों को बहुत इच्छा भी है। तमिलनाडु, कर्नाटक, केरला, इस सब जगह में अभी सैंडलवुड का फार्मिंग हो रहा है। अभी उसी तरह का इशू टीक वुड में है, कोई भी किसान टीक वुड नहीं उगाना चाहता है, क्योंकि उसको ट्रांजिट परमिट का इतना ज़्यादा इशू है कि वो नहीं उगाना चाहता है। वो सोचता है हम सिल्वर ओक उगा ले, जो कि हम शॉर्ट रोटेशन में बेच देंगे, हम टीक वुड में क्यों जाए। इवन जितने भी जो कॉफ़ी ओनर्स है वो लोग नहीं उगा रहे हैं, हमने उनसे भी बात की है, वो लोग भी नहीं उगा रहे हैं रोजवुड को। पहले वो रोजवुड उगाते थे, लेकिन अब बोलते नहीं इसमें दिक्कत है, हम इससे अच्छा सिल्वर उगा लेंगे, सो दैट हम उनको सेल कर सकते हैं आसानी से, जब मर्जी तो निकाल के हम उसको, फ्री है हमारा ट्रांजिट से। तो ये एक इशू है, इससे हमें ये देखना होगा कि हमारे जो फॉरेस्ट के रिजीम है उससे ग्रोइंग ऑफ ट्रीज ऑन द फार्म लैंड हमें फैसिलिटेट हो। और इम्पोर्टेंट स्पीसीज जो विवास रंजन जी ने जिस मुद्दे को लगाया था, बोला शुरुआत में, वो इशू बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। हमारा इंपोर्ट बिल टीक के लिए है, और हम एक्सपोर्ट करते थे रोजवुड, और हमारे पास रोजवुड ही नहीं है। अब हैंडीक्राफ्ट सेक्टर उसका सफ़र कर रहा है उसकी वजह से, और यही हाल शीशम का होने वाला है नॉर्थ इंडिया में। तो ये वी नीड टू फैसिलिटेट फार्मर्स इनटू ग्रोइंग दिस स्पीसीज ऑल्सो। इसलिए, लेकिन जब हम उसको एक लीगलिटी का चेन देंगे कि हाँ इस तरीके से आप अपना प्रूव कर सकते हो कि ये टिम्बर आपका ही है, तो वो भी फैसिलिटेट होंगे, उनको कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा कि हाँ ये टिम्बर को हम लोग उसको हम बाद में बेच सकते हैं। तो फिर उसका जब हम उसको डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करेंगे तो वो इंश्योरेंस के लिए भी जा सकता है। तो ये इशू बहुत लार्जर इंटरेस्ट के लिए है।
Dr.
हाँ प्लीज, या ओपन।
Dr. Singh, just a small observation on the some of the points, important points which were mentioned by Dhattaji. That and he read about that 98 forest policy, third class, at serial number 3, that no agricultural land can be diverted. So it is not question of diverting the agricultural land. It is diverting, practicing both agroforestry, agricultural crop along with the forest. So I think that will take care that agricultural land is not getting diverted only for growing the wood. Agriculture along with the forestry, along with the plantation tree. So that I think what you pointed out can be taken care of. Second thing, what you said is about wastage of the wood. See, nowadays, the concept has emerged and industry has come up in a way that there is almost zero wastage generated. Whatsoever is waste generated out of the plywood can be utilized by the particle board. Whatsoever waste is generated out of the plywood can be utilized by the particle board, and so on. And remaining with the lops and tops of the tree can be by the MDF plant. So those old concepts which is still prevailing in the mind of some of the bureaucrats and some of the people, that there is a lot of wastage generated by the industry is not so. And third thing about you said that, and you yourself said that wood is a renewable resource. So this is the best way how, if you can utilize, even if waste is utilized for generating the energy and meeting the requirement of industry, that is a good idea. And with that respect, I think recently a notification has been made by the Central Pollution Control Board, because in all NCR region for two months, our plywood industry used to get, they were asked to stop working because they were all using this fuel wood as a for a boiler or for generating the heat. So even they have withdrawn that order. So things are changing, and in the light of changing of all this requirement, unless and until we make a separate act actually for the agroforestry, probably in coming years, and if like that we keep on explaining that it comes under the definition of forest, nothing will happen. We will remain as such one of the largest timber importing country even in the past. So these are just some of the observations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey, for your observations and sharing your views with us. And now I open this forum. ऋत्विक दत्ता जी, आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे before opening it?
In fact, I am taking this as a learning experience from all that is coming in. So I don't have to count. I don't feel there's need to give any counter to anything. I accept many of these views on whether the wastage has been reduced and all. These are all points that can also go to, inform me of my ideas about it.
Yeah. Thank you. In fact, I just wanted to make one more observation that this chain is there, like plywood and then MDF, particle board. So different kind of timber is being used in all these three sectors, and then it goes to the sawmill. So it will depend on the different age of the trees, and depending upon the requirement of the farmers and the usage also. So the waste is very less to say, and even if it is used, all the waste is used for the fuel wood, that is also a green economy actually. It is better than using any other form of energy. So even if they use it for fuel wood also, because that is now established. And then we also need to understand that any industry putting up such a huge amount will never go for any unsustainable supply of raw material. They will look for the sustainable supply of raw material, because you cannot invest 400 crores for looking for the timber from the forest. That are the means that presumptions in the establishment of the industry and other things it has been taken too far. Now it is the time that we take a review of our position and how to facilitate the industry. Yeah, please. Muted, yeah, please.
Not immediately connected to this, but one point which links to all of it is also the fact that how does one encourage the use of wood? Because this is an issue that also needs to be looked at, because there is a mental gap that law by itself cannot address. There's a general idea that if you're using wood, it is not eco-friendly. You use steel, you use plastic, you are fine. And I always give the example because, as many of you know, I regularly go to Indira Gandhi Forest Academy, FRI, the campus, to take classes. And I've many once said, the Indira Gandhi Forest Academy guest house is about 100 meters away from that wood science technology museum or factory that is there. And in that wood science, whatever is the name, you've shown such amazing use of wood, whether it's bus stand, whether it's industrial sheds, everything is done with wood. And I think the way it is seasoned, you can actually show that everything can be made of wood. Then you come to the guest house, right from the doors to, the beds, to even the staircase grills and the railings that are there are all made of steel. There's not a single use of wood, even in the guest house of the Forest Academy. And you have a museum right next to it. So what I find very interesting is that, many a times we are reducing where there was scope. And if the forest department itself does not want to use wood, you look at any forest rest house, I'm just sorry for diverting it. Everything is about modernization, where you are replacing it with Chinese furnitures and all of them coming, and wood has been taken out. So I think along with this, there needs to be a promotion of the fact that it is eco-friendly to have doors made of wood. It is eco-friendly to use all these substances and not just steel and others which are replacing everything.
Thank you. Yeah, you have really raised very valid point. In fact, CPWD, they had prohibited use of wood in buildings.
Yes.
And now only it has been withdrawn, but still they are not enforcing it. Still they are going with the old estimate kind of things only. And so it is and in fact, if you see some of the advertisements also, they talk about not cut tree but use steel. So
Absolutely.
that mindset, and we have our policy of 88 also responsible for that, when it talks about using alternative materials. So, and no material can be climate friendly, more climate friendly than wood. But still they talked about, because that time understanding was that only. But now with the climate change and biodiversity aspect, now people have understood better. So we really need to take a reversal. That is what my whole point is. That in the so many years we have really gone in a different path. and where we have really not matched with the requirement of the climate change or requirement of the biodiversity. And as much if we favor agroforestry, if we support agroforestry, there will be less demand on the forest. As of now also, we have only 3% supply from the forest, and rest of it is coming from the import. So even we should endeavor that we make augment our own resource, raw material, so that we substitute that import also, because import what is happening is also coming from different countries and maybe different forests. We don't know, because we have not put any conditions like the America Lassie Act or the Europe. We have not put
Yes.
any condition, so we don't know whether they are coming from the sustainable management or not. So we really need to, and India being such a big country, and we really need to look that how we can be sustainable in this field. And there is lots of scope. I can see so many farmers get interested into undertaking agroforestry, and especially the timber long rotation crops also. But they are looking for some support, policy support, act support from the government, legal support from the government. Yeah, CN Pandey ji, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं?
In this, your draft, I think repeatedly I have been telling that this state level committee should not come in the picture of our draft, because they are the biggest hurdle creator actually. They try to twist the matter, and as a result, I think this all that exercise which is done by the industry or by the forest department, that gets twisted, or farmers get twisted. So SLC should not have much role actually in the agroforestry material, because as you have rightly said, that it is a agriculture produce, it is a farm produce, on which SLC should not have any role. Unnecessarily they say that we will have to first assess the requirement of the whether it is available for the industry or not, despite the fact that across the state movement of timber is allowed. What is the I do not understand what is the significance of SLC in the in our draft act, and in what way it will promote extension and promotion of the agroforestry in the country.
And Dr. Pandey, if you see, we have not talked about SLC. We have talked about the State Wood Council under the chairmanship of the Chief Minister. See, you need to augment and facilitate also the sector, because everything cannot be done at the Government of India level. It can only give a policy guidelines, but the real augmentation has to rest with the state. And that is what we have given. And you are not required to take any license. It is talking of the online registration, but the facilitation, like having the stakeholder together, all the industry, farmers, and the government bodies together, and talking about the issues. You don't have a platform at present in the state, and that is why your issues are not being heard anywhere. So had you had a platform, and every there should be a forum for all the stakeholders coming together, discussing the issues, and coming out with the guidance. So it is the role of the State Wood Council in that fashion. It is not like SLC. That concept is not there in this draft.
Somewhere you have mentioned in your draft, it is okay. If it is not there, then it is fine.
No.
It's not there. In your draft,
Actually, because you have been so much bogged down by the SLC that you think that it is still there. I can understand that, but it is not there. We have taken care of everything.
डॉक्टर पांडे, ये सिंह साहब ने बहुत ज्यादा सिंप्लीफाई कर दिया है. इसमें आईटी बेस्ड रजिस्ट्रेशन है ऑनलाइन, तो उसके अंदर कोई मतलब वो नहीं है प्रायर लेना पड़ेगा या विदाउट प्रायर अप्रूवल नहीं कर पाएंगे. इट इज सिंपली फॉर द स्टैटिस्टिकल रीजंस दैट आप फैक्ट्री लगा रहे हैं, एक डाटा आपने फिल कर दिया, तो उसके बाद में वहां से रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट हो गया, एंड दैट विल हेल्प फॉर ऑल अदर पर्पज, लाइक वैल्यू चेन जो है, कस्टडी चेन, और ये जो है ना, उसके अंदर फिर वो बहुत हैंडी रहेगा. तो आई एग्री विद दैट कि ये अच्छा, मतलब इनका जो है ना वो तो करना पड़ेगा, एक प्लेटफॉर्म तो बनाना पड़ेगा। तो वो उसका और कोई जब डाटा है नहीं, चीजें वहीं से चालू होगी। उसी तरह फार्मर है, उनको भी रजिस्टर करना पड़ेगा अगर वो लेना चाहते हैं ये सर्टिफिकेशन उसका, तो उसको रजिस्टर करके और उस सर्टिफिकेशन के साथ उसकी लिंक देनी पड़ेगी, कोई एक डॉक्यूमेंट। तो उससे फिर उसकी कस्टडी ट्रांसफर होगी फ्रॉम फार्मर टू इंडस्ट्री, इंडस्ट्री टू फिर फर्नीचर मेकर्स, फर्नीचर मेकर्स के साथ में फिर वो जाएगी। तो ठीक है, वो इसमें बहुत सिंप्लीफाई कर दिया। पहले जो एक का ड्राफ्ट मैंने देखा था उसके अंदर एक तरह से मैंडेटरी था रजिस्ट्रेशन का, तो रजिस्ट्रेशन का मैंडेटरी अभी भी है, लेकिन इसका जो नोमेनक्लेचर है वो चेंज हो गया। तो वो एक मतलब कोई सिंपली एक स्टेटमेंट है, वो देना है, रजिस्टर करना है, प्रायर मतलब उसका वो नहीं चाहिए, अप्रूवल नहीं चाहिए, वो चीज है। ठीक है, उसमें आपका जो है ना ये डॉक्टर सिंह,
थैंक यू। हाँ, यस।
ये जो है इसके अंदर तो बाकी तो और अभी आपके सजेशन आएंगे और आएंगे, तो उसको देख के वैसे आपने प्लेटफॉर्म बहुत अच्छा बनाया है, और इसको फिर आगे बढ़ा के और थोड़ा सा और कंसल्टेशन करके जितना अच्छा हम लोग ला सकते हैं, और जो ऋत्विक जी हैं या इनसे बात करके क्या क्या टेक्निकल फ्लॉ है इसमें, जो विच इज इंडिया के जुरिस्प्रूडेंस में, लीगल फ्रेमवर्क में क्या क्या चीज वर्केबल नहीं है, वो थोड़े से लीगल एक्सपर्ट को आपको दिखा के ले लेना पड़ेगा। नहीं है तो फिर वो क्या है, वो टेक्निकल पॉइंट पे जो अथॉरिटी है वो रिजेक्ट कर देगी उसको, तो उसको थोड़ा ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा। और मैं थोड़ी सी आपसे आज्ञा चाहूंगा,
थैंक यू,
कोई
थैंक
दूसरा
यू।
अपॉइंटमेंट है।
नहीं, थैंक यू
Thank
for being with
Thank
us
you, thank
and
you
guiding
everybody,
us.
thank you.
Thank you. And now I request any other member who is present may make their comments or observations. Somebody has made in the chat box, but we are not able to read out from the chat box. So if you can put on.
Hello.
Yeah, please, you can make your observations. Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Asif Iman.
Forum is open now.
Hello, good evening,
Hello.
I'm Asif Iman.
हाँ, धीमान जी बोलिए।
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening to all the panelists and others who are in the webinar. I think after hearing Dhattaji, I'm a little bit confused that until unless we probably make amendments in other law, we would land in trouble somewhere because the other laws would be hindering the implementation of this new law. Now, my version at this stage would be to explore another possibility for declaring whatever grown on agriculture land should be declared as agricultural produce. And there are provisions for FSC certification to agriculture crops and agriculture produce over there. So I think the way forward could also be possible that if we explore this possibility of declaring whatever crop, whether it's a horticulture, is declared agriculture produce, even other plants which can be grown on agricultural land could be declared as agriculture produce. That is my comment.
Yeah, thank you, धीमान जी। सुभाष जोली जी, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे थे? सुभाष जोली जी, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे थे?
हेलो, आवाज आ रही है सर?
हाँ हाँ, आ रही है, बोलिए।
हेलो।
या
हाँ सर,
बोलिए।
एक ये सर यही एक इंडस्ट्री है ऐसी जिसके कारण पोल्यूशन दूर कर रहे हैं सर। तो इसको तो हर हालत में गवर्नमेंट को भी और आम पब्लिक को भी जो है सपोर्ट करना है, और आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है, हमारा सपोर्ट आपके साथ में है।
थैंक यू जोली जी। और कोई बोलना चाहेंगे? केपी दुबे साहब, आप कुछ यू वांट टू मेक एनी ऑब्जर्वेशन?
Sure.
Please,
It was a
sir.
very nice discussion today, whatever we had from the panelists as well as the distinguished participants. What I feel is that the best point which came out today is the wood promotion, by each and everyone who spoke. wood promotion was central, and I think for that only we have gathered here. That should be always taken into mind before speaking or talking or doing anything about it. So wood promotion should surmount all the sort of, that should be the main objective in fact, but that is what I suppose. And if that is there, our central theme of being carbon neutral by 2070, that also comes into being. And whatever our distinguished panelists have spoken about wood recycling, wood waste, minimizing wood wastage and recycling whatever is produced from wood-based industries, that goes in the spirits of wood promotion and as well as the carbon dominating even in using in the energy systems. We all know that by 2070, our country has resolved to go carbon neutral even in the energy sector. That is a very, very important point. And for that, what or which wastages may be used to bamboo also for being carbon neutral in energy sector, and to a certain extent, I'm sure by now I think of the coal, whatever is being used in the coal sector, my energy sector, has to come through these non-coal sources, that is non-conventional energy sources. So that's a very, very important point where the wood as wood is also promoted. So this is the second point. The third point is that regarding the legislations, acts and guidelines, I think it needs to be integrated with all the other acts, whatever we have today. If we talk of forest, talk of biodiversity act, both on the federal level as well as the state level. So these integration has to be done. And for that, what I propose is that it should be widely circulated to the general public. I mean, will be to be devised, maybe open on the website, and then accordingly we need to involve the public also at large, the jurists, the legal practitioners, and the breeders, the general public, the industry, and the farmers as well, and the farmer groups also. So these are the 3-4 suggestions which what I wanted to give, and I think surely and certainly the leadership taken by the wood-based industry as well as the institutions like IWST will certainly go a far way ahead to promote the sector and to promote wood is good. Thanks to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your guidance. In fact, I'm really getting encouraged to include a provision that there should be something to encourage wood as a material. So some provision should be there. We had given this provision in the amendment revision draft for the wood-based industry guidelines. So I think we should include that here also. So that when it is part of the act, it is taken care by all the stakeholders. And in fact, I will again reiterate about what Mr. Dr. Dhiman was also talking, and you also hinted. So see, it is really next to impossible to reconcile all the Forest Act and rules. So to my understanding, after going through the details of many states, I have come to the conclusion that it is impossible to reconcile the provisions of all the states, state amendments. India is such a country, you cannot have it in another 10 years. And then this sector will suffer. So we need to go the way the Forest Rights Act has gone, that we should have a provision of having the overriding provision of all the acts and rules with respect to forests will not apply so far as the farmwood is concerned. So that is my understanding. Otherwise, we can keep on talking next 10 years. I have no, I'm not at all optimistic that this will happen. I have seen the states amendments and state rules, they are very typical. Many states have got the rules for the failing rules, then the transport rules, and they will not change. All the, see, so many bottlenecks are there. Their cabinet is there, their secretary is there. They will not agree. They will all will be in different frequency. So it is really difficult. So that is why, that is my submission. Thank you. If anybody else wants to make your comments, otherwise, with the final comments from Ritwik Dhattaji, we can conclude the webinar.
They have to be distinguished, in particular. I mean, you have to have some. We talked about attributes defined, very well clearly defined in the act itself. Clearly distinguishes wood which has been sourced from forests and wood which has been sourced from farms. So how do we do it? I think we will need to integrate the skills, knowledge, and developed needed to
I
build a
understood,
team
sir.
which does this job. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
understood, sir. There is a very detailed procedure of due diligence being followed worldwide, and the chain of custody is being followed worldwide. And that is how you can export your material to the European Union. You have to show them, you have to prove that it is not coming from the illegal sources. So there is a system already in place in many countries. We can also follow, but when we are at this stage, we can use the IT so that our system will be more efficient. That is my understanding of the situation. Thank you, sir. Yeah, over to Ritwik Dhattaji. Yeah, please. Muted, please.
Sorry. Thank you. This was very insightful, and I think a very positive beginning has been made. I also have a copy of whatever was presented. I'll also give my comments to it. And I think from there, the discussion, a fairly good number of points have come in. I am part of the committee also, and we are meeting on the 29th. And many of the inputs that have come and the views that are there, I'll try to also incorporate the same in the submissions that I make and whatever that I prepare for it. But, having said it, I think we must work at different levels. And as you rightly said, sir, that what is important is we cannot look at changes in every single state act. They are a product of a lot of processes that have happened in the past. So therefore, changes will have to be done at a national level so that there is an implicit repeal of all the provisions that are there which are contradictory to this national legislation, policy, or whatever. I think it has to be in the form of a law that is passed. So thank you again. And I think a very good beginning has been made, and there are many important talking points in the law that has been drafted by you, and this is the step which will surely take us on a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Before ending this webinar, it's my privilege to propose vote of thanks. At the outset, I would like to thank Shri Bivas Ranjan Saab, ADG Wildlife, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, being with us and setting agenda points for this discussion. I extend my sincere thanks to Shri Ritwik Dhattaji for accepting our request to participate in this panel discussion as a panelist, sharing your experience as well as your thoughts, and also encouraging words for IWST. I also thank Sajan Bajankaji, who also accepted our request to participate as a panelist in this discussion and sharing his experience. My special thanks to all esteemed participants for their active participation in the discussion and providing appropriate feedback for improving this legislation. I would like to thank our director, Dr. MP Singh, for his guidance and constant support for organizing this webinar. And I also thank my colleagues who joined us virtually as well as who are with us here in the hall for sparing their time to attend this webinar. To conclude, let me once again reiterate my gratitude to all of you. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.